everybody, and welcome to Game Changers with Harry Shearer. Harry!
Hey, Vicki.
Harry, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've been trying to
You
get
did
you.
invite me, didn't you? Okay.
Well, actually, this time Judith called me, but I did invite you about a year and a half ago after we met at David Lander's anniversary party.
Yeah, it just took a long time to say yes.
You were hard to get. Do you want to be hard to get?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Harry, there's so many things to talk about that I didn't sneak to you before we went live. But first of all, I did tell you my son's name is Harry, and that's true. Yeah. So I love that about you. I also didn't tell you that in 1984, I was on Saturday Night Live for 10 seconds with Billy Crystal, and you came on right at the first time he did Buddy Young Jr., and you did a 60-minute segment with
Martin Short and Chris Guest.
With Martin Short, yes, and
swimming.
And I was that the first time that he did Therm.
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah, he invented Nathan for that.
He invented Nathan for that, and that was the most brilliant sketch. I ended up getting Billy Crystal upgraded me and gave me a bit, and it got cut, but it was worth it to sit there and watch. You guys were brilliant. But also, okay, I'm going to start with all the many 2 degrees. You were a child actor. We're going to talk about that. But you were the original Eddie Haskell, yes?
Yes, in the pilot, pardon me, he didn't have the name Eddie Haskell. He had another name, which I don't remember at this point. But I'm sure somebody can go to IMDb and get the wrong answer. And I was working as a kid actor.
All right, wait, tell me that story. How did you break into showbiz? I know Abbott and Costello, but how did that happen?
Well, it wasn't Abbott and Costello, it was the first thing. First thing was the Jack Benny program. And I had a piano teacher when I was 4. And I think that my recalcitrance at practicing and things like that sort of just encouraged her to change careers. And her daughter was an actress. So she thought, I'll be a children's agent because she had the connections. So she came to my folks and said, "Can you mind if I try to get Harry some work?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure."
Now wait, folks, not showbiz.
No, not at all. They were both immigrants from Eastern Europe, anything but showbiz. So 8 months went by, and it was sort of a house joke. Have we heard from Mrs. McMillan yet? And then one day she called and had a reading for me at the Jack Benny program. And I went.
That photograph, I'm going to post it. Oh my God!
Yeah, and I went up to the Taft building, which I think is still there at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. Went up to his office, and his producer read me, and I was a good reader. I'd had private school for the first 3 grades, so I was really slamming at reading. So I could pick up a script and read it aloud. More importantly. Wow. And so I got the job, and I worked for him for 8 years. Abbott and Costello, Go to Mars, and The Robe were my 2 movies as a child. Okay,
Richard Burton as a co-star. What are you?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, that was my gamut. Abbott and Costello, Go to Mars, and The Robe. Filling in the rest is just as read. I don't remember the adults so much on the Robe. I remember I was there for a couple of scenes with another kid who was the director's son. These things happen. And he was sick. So what was supposed to be like a 2 or 3 day gig turned into a 2-week thing. I'd show up at the lot. I got full body makeup. I got my hair curled, and then sat around reading Variety for 2 weeks. And the most memorable thing about that job was the Fox commissary, which at that time was a real thing. The 20th Century Fox, the commissary in the 20th Century Fox lot, and it was my introduction to what has become one of my 2 or 3 favorite foods ever since: roast duck. I had roast duck every day for 2 weeks. That's for lunch. That's what I remember about the Robe.
Oh my
God! The duck.
Did you ever go to the Peking Duck House in New York? Of course you have.
No,
it's still there actually in Chinatown. It's pretty great. If you like duck, there you go.
I love duck. That was the best duck I ever had in the world. Was a recipe that was invented by a guy named Michael Jordan, not the one you're thinking of, opened Emerald's second restaurant in New Orleans. And this duck stayed on that menu through 8 chefs because we all said, if you take this off the menu, call the bomb squad because
we're very serious about our food. Food is a huge issue.
Well, yeah, for better or worse. I mean, for a lot of people, it's an issue that plagues them. But for me, it's like, give me some decent food a couple times a day,
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. We're in COVID. Everything's become very weird. You and Judith are traveling in COVID. No?
Just between LA and New Orleans, just between homes.
Okay, but how is that? How was it getting on a plane?
It's okay.
Yeah, it wasn't scary?
Not the way we did it.
Do you have a hazmat suit?
No, I don't want to talk about this.
Okay, all right, we don't have to talk about this. But so are you restauranting in COVID?
Yeah. There are restaurants in New Orleans which have outdoor seating. Mm-hmm. We feel perfectly comfortable with that. And then others have takeaway. And Judith has constructed a beautiful little cafe pop-up right here in our front yard in New Orleans. And so we, I'll cook like once a week. But otherwise, we're eating pretty damn well New Orleans style. I'm knocking on glass, but I mean,
I'll knock on wood for you.
Good, thank you. We're having about the most fortunate COVID it's possible to have, I think, because we're working. We're very productive because we're not spending a lot of time driving. Every day I count the bonus hours. And we're still able to see friends. We'll go with a couple friends to a restaurant and masked except when we're eating and outside. So it's working out okay so far, but we got a long way to go.
So did you hear today that somebody in the trial, one of the vaccine trials, died today? Or died actually on Monday and they just released it today?
Was it one of the trials that had paused?
No, they are continuing this particular trial, which tends to imply
dampens your interest in taking that vaccine, does it?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a mite.
It seems to feed the theory that she was perhaps one of the placebo receivers because could they be continuing the trial? They haven't given us the information yet. I just heard it right before we came down today. But so I lead what's called the COVID crazies. I go live every day. COVID's been a breeding ground for creativity and for connection of this kind in many ways. Mm-hmm. But for someone like me, I live alone. I haven't traveled. It's been, I was saying yesterday that a lot of people I know are becoming extremely ill with things other than COVID because I think the COVID stress and the COVID fear is plaguing a lot.
And the COVID fusion. The confusion is created by it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. I mean, that song on my record, COVID 180, is about that,
COVID 180 from the many moods of Donald Trump. I have not said his name in all of these months. I'm saying it because of you, Harry. Tell us about the many moods of Donald Trump.
Yeah, you know what I do on my radio show? I chuckle every time I say it. Donald Trump, which it's useful. On the aforesaid radio show, I make fun of the news. It's on
the show
on public radio stations, not NPR, once a week. And so.
But you are on NPR, yeah?
No, NPR has nothing to do with my show.
Okay, so you got to talk to Wikipedia because they got you wrong. Yeah.
IMDb says I was in Spaceballs, which I was not. So. I make fun of the news, and there's this guy in the news that seems to demand a lot of attention, like crave it every day. So I comply with his wishes, and so every week I tend to write either a comedy sketch where I play all the characters, a series called The Presidentess, or I write a song, and he says or does something that just screams a song, like repeating his self-description, very stable genius, over and over again. That's a song. I'm sorry, that's a song. So at the beginning of this year, I realized gee, I've written a lot of songs, of these songs. And I went through them and found a bunch that I still liked and thought.
They're amazing. They're hysterical. But they're so dense with so much information. Like, how long does it take you to write a song?
The lyrics I usually write first.
Yeah.
And they come pretty fast. Once I have to sort of suss out in my mind what style of song it's going to be, what kind of music.
I will stop you for 1 second because musically, I'm going to stop you more than once. Musically, they are absolute. Forget the lyrics, which are they are so beautifully produced.
Yeah, well,
I know Bones for years, and your Bones Malone, and the players on there are absolutely stellar in First Ray. It swings. That album swings.
Yeah,
it's just
I took the songs, which were demo versions on the radio, and took them to a producer I've worked with for years, CJ Vanston, who's just amazing and is so under-recognized for his talent. Brilliant arranger, brilliant keyboard player. There's a trombone solo on one of the songs. That's him on the keys emulating a trombone. Fools everybody.
Wow.
So, and then as soon as I figured out, okay, this is this kind of song, so the lyric lines are about this length, then it's pretty easy to write the lyrics because I know what the deal is. Okay, very stable genius. It's a song about geniuses. And then I'm just trying to. Then I'll sit down at the piano with the lyrics in front of me and just look for chords that seem interesting as a set of chords, And then the last step is having the chords, try singing the words against them and see if it comes up with a decent melody. If it doesn't, then I'll change a chord or two to make it a better melody. So it's a three-part process.
It's a three-part process. And so what's your highest hope for this? I mean, it's dropping on October 30th. So you've got 4 days. Well, but although with the way the election results are going, a year before this is over.
Yeah, and there'll be the militias. There'll be everything.
So that period between the election and January 22nd, if things go the way I hope, are going to be a pretty interesting time in this country, no?
Well, it's going to be a pretty interesting time in this country one way or the other. There are going to be some happy people. There are going to be some angry people. Let's hope they both keep it under control. I have dark thoughts and light thoughts about what might happen, which I don't particularly think I should share because people don't need any more dark thoughts.
Yeah.
I do think. Let me suggest one thing. I think Donald Trump. Sorry.
Yes.
Built his, and I'm going to use a term of art here, his adult persona around the idea of being a winner. I think that if that's really true, if that's really as deep as I think it goes, which is pretty shallow, but for him, deep, that losing the biggest thing in the world, on the biggest stage in the world, in front of the most people in the world, is going to be highly destructive to him personality-wise. And I think there may be something serious that happens in the aftermath of that. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just thinking.
Interesting.
This is who this guy thinks he is, and this is the world saying, "No, you're not." Now, the last time I saw something like that was in October 4 years ago. There's a thing in New York every year called the Catholic Charities Dinner. It's a white Al Smith dinner. It's white tie, all the swells and the elite of Manhattan finance and real estate.
I was never invited.
Nor was I. And Trump forever has yearned to be accepted by that group. He's a pisher from Queens, let's face it. And That's what I hear his father saying to him in his head. That's why I think he has to talk so loud, is to talk so he can hear himself over his father yelling at him. Pisher, you're never going to be anything but a pisher from Queens. You're a pisher from Queens. And so he craves the acceptance of these New York real estate elites. Mm-hmm. They have always looked down on him as an arriviste and a crass, vulgar guy.
As he is. Yeah.
As he is. Yeah. They're right about that. So he and Hillary Clinton are at this Catholic Charities dinner, mm-hmm. and the presidential candidates are invited every 4 years, and they're supposed to deliver these pleasantly self-deprecating remarks, that thing. Mm-hmm. And he gets up to deliver his remarks, and they boo him.
Wow.
On national television.
Wow.
So that was a little mini.
His response to that.
Just stands and just reads as stiffly as possible his lines, to get through it. But, it would be worth watching it again. It's probably on YouTube if you check Al Smith Dinner 2016.
Wow.
It's really fitting how he reacted, because, of course, that's going to be a miniature of how he reacts on November whatever, if it goes against him,
But do you think for a moment that he will actually be in acceptance of, I don't think no matter what happens, I think they'll literally have to physically cart him out of the White House. I don't think he's going to accept it at all.
Well, that makes an assumption, which I think is a dangerous assumption, that when he's cast doubt about whether he's going to do that or not, that he's telling the truth. Hmm. And I don't think the record bears that.
The record show that's never happened once ever. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's always trying to throw sand in the gears, and rarely is got the balls to carry it out. So I think it's not a safe bet, but it's a good bet that that's what that is. Mm-hmm. My mind goes back to some time ago when there was another president that I was making fun of a lot, and for many years after he left the
I love your profile of Nixon with that note that you had was fantastic.
Well, thank you. I did this series called Nixon's the One for British TV, where we acted out the crazier parts of the Nixon White House tapes. But what wasn't in there, because it wasn't on tape, is late in his presidency, late in Watergate, he started drinking fairly heavily, was known to walk the halls of the White House at night talking to the paintings.
Could you give us a little of that?
I don't know the lines. Give me the lines, I'll do it.
I don't know. Anything is Nixon. Give us anything.
Abe, you had to go through a lot of shit, but you never had to go through this. I did the drunk Nixon once in that series. There's a conversation he has with Kissinger, and Kissinger's come back from a party, and Nixon has been alone drinking. Mm-hmm. And you hear on the tape that he's got this thing going. But I was trying to figure out the body language of the drunk Nixon, because he was always such a tight, inhibited figure. And I thought maybe he learned how to be loose by watching Jack Benny and Bob Hope. And so when he got drunk, he could get a little bit Jack Benny and Bob Hope. But anyway, so in that period, it's well known, or it's established fairly well, that the Secretary of Defense sent out an edict to everybody under him saying certain kinds of orders from the president involving certain kinds of weapons are not to be executed without being countersigned by me. And I think it's quite possible that a similar thing is happening now.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I would like to hope that is true.
And Trump's supporters, that's the deep state, and the rest of us will say that's the Constitution. So there you go.
So, oh God, speaking of the Constitution, I just had this conversation with my mother, who's independent, and she was saying, we were talking about Coney Baloney. Thank you, Cindy Beagle, for that. who you might know from Laverne and Shirley days. But anyway, we were talking about, talked about Roe v. Wade being overturned. Oh, she'll never do that because it wasn't in the Constitution. These people that are following, anyway, I can't get started on that. We're not going to go down that road right now.
Don't rant me, baby. Don't rant me.
I can't. I know I can't get started with that. So all right. All right. So let's finish up with the album first, and then we're going to go back. So okay. So on October 30th, people can get it they can get it where? Tell us where they can get it.
Get it on CD at and where do they sell CDs now?
I don't know. CD Baby.
Yeah. And you can get it streaming through all your music, or as they say in the commercials, wherever you get your music. And the songs have been dropping. I've been dropping the songs, I should say, once a week on YouTube, so you can get them there.
Okay, I saw the wrong ones. Your person sent me ones with just a card, but there are full-blown.
Oh yeah. And I went to a visual effects studio in Sydney because Judith was touring Australia just before they closed the place. And so I was with her. The day before I left, I got introduced to a guy who runs a visual effects studio there. And I said, look, these songs are all sung in the voice. All the songs on the record are sung in the voice of Donald Trump, except for the end one, which is sung in the voice of Leonard Cohen's brother, Jim. And it's a lit song called He Lies. And so I said, all the songs sung in the voice of Donald Trump, I needed the video to look like it's Donald Trump singing it. Can you do that? He said, yeah. I said, I don't want to be wearing makeup. I don't, enough of that. So we did it another way, and it's kind of freakish.
Okay, because the one I saw with just the card, you're like in the background blurry kind of.
Yeah. Okay. That's a lyric video, which is a style of video that people do when they can't afford to do it real.
Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna read off a couple of my favorite titles for those of you at home who are waiting for it. I Can't Believe I'm Me, Stormy Daniels, Number One Son, COVID 180. This album is absolutely hysterical, and as I said before, the quality of the music and the musicianship and the big band and the swing. What?
No, I'm gonna just leave the camera for a moment.
Yes, go get and show.
I'm still here.
Okay, Harry's still here.
A special effect.
Oh, yay. Can you show us? Oh, yay.
This is me as Donald Trump in the video Son-in-Law.
No, it is not.
Yeah, it is.
No, stop it. I've been looking at that picture for a week. That is not you.
Yeah, that is me.
No, not for 1 second do I believe you. You're lying like he lies.
I can't lie like he lies. Nobody can lie like he lies.
That is you?
Yeah, that's me with an interface of 2 or 3 different technologies. So, but it's my behavior, it's my gestures, it's my everything.
Oh, I think Alec Baldwin's out of business. Wow.
Have you seen the first 5 minutes of the Spike Lee KKK movie?
No.
He'd be out of business. Oh, I didn't say that. Who's doing that?
Yes, wait a minute. Of course I did. I saw it 3 times, and I saw Spike speak. I actually love that movie, though.
I'm just talking about the first 5 minutes.
Yes, yeah. All right, we won't go there. But it was a great. But Spike did a great job.
I just wonder who cooked the scenery for him.
And Terrence Blanchard did a great score on that movie. I happen to love that movie.
Yeah.
But okay, but I know what you're talking about. Yes, I had to think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I don't associate him with that film actually, but he had a pretty big part. Anyway, okay, but let's talk about you. So let's go back to, so you didn't take the Eddie Haskell role, but Ken Osmond did, and he was in my living room, and he died recently. But
he didn't die in your living room.
No, he didn't die in my living room, but I have this literary salon here that Norman did, and that Fred did, and so many of your friends, and Ken was one of them. So why did your parents turn you down the Leave It to Beaver?
It was really very sane of them. They weren't real show business parents. They said, look, you're going to public school, you're still with your friends, you're working when you want to, or when, the job comes along, but you have a kind of normal life. And if you get into a series, we have to take you out of public school. We have to put you in that special school in Hollywood. And, you won't see your friends as much. And we just think it's better for you to have a more normal life. And I was fine with that. I was perfectly fine. I was working on the best show in fucking show business, Jack Benny.
That is so. What was he like? What was he like with you?
Great. He was the exact opposite of the character he played on television, which is exactly what show business is all about.
Right.
It's what I say about actors, but it's about comedians too. And you play who you're not. That's what the gig is. So he was generous. He was warm. I mean, he was crazy good to me. The minute, I did the first 3 shows, and on the 3rd show, he gave me a gift, and it was like, you're in the family now. And from then on, it was, he was the first person I remember making laugh. We were at a read through, and and I was sitting here, and he was at the end of the table, and I did a little thing, but it wasn't in the script, and it was just a little thing. And he's like this, hand up in the air, roaring with head thrown back with laughter. And I just went, give me more of this, please. Just give me more of this.
Wow. Making Jack Benny laugh. I mean, I don't know how much better it can get than that. Especially
I've been working my way down ever since.
Although now you've worked with Carl Reiner told me that Albert Brooks is the funniest person that he's ever met in his life. And that was talking behind Mel. I mean, you've worked with some besides yourself.
Yes. And at the time that probably was true. No, I'm serious. There was a time when you could say that with a straight face and people would go, of course.
So all right. So Abbott and Costello. All right. Before we move on from your child, come on, Abbott and Costello. I mean, I watched Abbott and Costello every day of my life as a kid. You must have been so envied by your friends that you were working with Abbott and Costello. No. No.
I didn't noise around what I was doing.
Didn't they see you on the thing?
I mean, the movie came out. I was probably in a different school by then. As long as it took for movies to come out. The strangest thing about that was I was in the first scene, and a scene with Costello. Never met Abbott, of course, it's about them trying to build a spaceship and go to Mars.
Yeah.
Joke. And I never saw the whole movie because I was in the first scene. So I go, okay, thanks, I got it. And so years later, I moved to New Orleans, and I was talking to somebody either here or back in LA about the movie, and they said, well, you know what happens in that film, don't you? I said, no, I have no idea. Where do you know where the rocket ends up, right? No, I have no idea. In New Orleans at Mardi Gras. There's a hand of fate, isn't there?
Everything's meant to be. Yeah. Okay, so child actor, you move on, and so how did the credibility gap happen?
Well, I'd gone to college. I quit show business to be a serious grown-up. I was going to be real good at that.
Were you a serious kid? Were you like kind of a serious kid? Aside from being hysterically funny?
Yeah, very serious. And very serious about, very serious. I did well in school, and I cared about that. But I was also working on the daily paper at UCLA, and then edited the humor magazine. So I was always wasting my time usefully. And then I tried other.
Political, Harry, as a kid, because we grew up at a time when politics were like they are now, very, very front and center. Were you political then?
Yeah, I was. I didn't go to a lot. I went to a lot of meetings, and I wore meetings. I cared a lot about the war because I was draft age. And
did you have a number?
No, I was before the lottery. I'm older than that. I'm older than the lottery. And so I would go to these meetings, and I learned a lot about that side of the political fence, which you could sum up as the really hard leftists, the party people, were always the ones who stayed to the end of the meetings. Everybody else had things to do, and They'd say their piece and then go. And I was the one who kept saying, you know what? We have these demonstrations and the cops come, and if it gets on the news at all, it's footage of the cops and the kids, and what we're talking about never gets on the news. So maybe we should think about a different tactic, you know? And that was laughed out of the room. So I realized that was, you know, but I didn't particularly. I had friends. I went to Century City, and my friend Terry Gilliam and his girlfriend, I think she was with him at the time. She was British. She is British, but I think they got hit by the cops. I think, and that was enough to get me away from that. They went to Century City, which was a big one. So yes, I was political. I went to. I've been to a lot of conventions of both parties because I used to do my radio show from conventions, and it went from shipping 2 huge lockers full of equipment to the convention site to taking a laptop.
Wow.
But you know, they became. It was during that period that they became really irrelevant, just TV shows, just bad TV shows. Now that's all they are, but it's increasing. But it was it's a party for people in the party to just get together and drink, which I'm not and I don't. So, but yeah, my parents always talked about the news and politics at the dinner table. So it was something that was what we did, and we did it in a civil way, you know.
Are they lefties?
My mom was a labor Zionist, and my dad died too soon for me really to know what his politics were. And the most fraught conversations that we had, my mom and I, were over Israel. I could not understand why you'd want to put that country in the middle of the Arab world. Yeah, I know the book. I know the book. I know from the book. Stop with the book.
Okay, so back to the credibility gap. How did you meet Michael and David? How did that happen?
Well, it started with a bunch of. This was on this station, which was always the #2 rock station in town. It could never get to #1.
Like Hertz, they tried harder.
Yeah, right. They tried less harder. It wasn't Hertz that tried harder. It was Avis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Avis was the try. Oh,
yeah. 50 years of advertising really works. So they tried different things. And this being the late 60s, it was an era where the grown-ups were perplexed by the kids. They just didn't know what it was that the kids wanted and what the kids would like. And so in their desperation to try something to get more audience for this rock station, they decided to do a news program that veered into comedy, making fun of the news. This was the 60s. Who knew? Right. So the news director became the head of this, and they were still the same people. They were the news guys, but now they were doing comedy. And after about
people? The same people?
The same people for the first 3 months, and then they started to flag, and so and I heard through a friend that they were looking for somebody. And so I cobbled a little.
Oh.
And so I was the first of the non-news people hired. And then a woman who was a friend of that show did some of the women's voices on that show, said, there's this really freakishly funny guy who's on my answering services for the kids out there, where live people would answer your phone when you weren't home and take messages and then deliver them to you when you called in. And she said, there's this guy who's just so funny on my answering service, and that was David Lander.
Wow.
And he joined us next. And then David said, there's this guy I went to school with, McKean, and he's funny and he does music. And so McKean joined us next. And then one of the original news guys stayed with us for a while, Richard Beebe. So we worked as a foursome for a while, and then we worked as a threesome until the end of that.
That lasted for a long time for you, though. That was years, yeah?
It was a few years, yeah. We broke up when they went off to do Laverne and Shirley.
Okay, so so Gary Marshall also in the living room. Loved Gary, loved the Gary. And so Laverne and Shirley didn't like ring your bell a whole lot, from what I understand.
That's a nice way of putting it. Laverne and Shirley, this was for the 4 actors involved, like a little 6-week gig, except that it's the only television show in the history of American television to premiere at #1.
Unbelievable.
And the big concrete door with the words 7 years comes down, you know, and now this is your job for the next 7 fucking years. And I think that took its toll on everybody who was there. I got out, but no, I didn't particularly. Gary would come around every once. I would write with David and Michael their characters roles, and Gary would come around every once in a while and say, "You'll be the guy from the DJ from the drive-in." And I think, in a million fucking years, Gary, no, it wasn't my cup of tea.
My friend Cindy Beagle was a writer on that show, and Cindy, the other Cindy, was actually here, and also all kinds of things. Okay, but then you went and you wrote on one of my favorite shows of all time, and it's going to make me cry to think about it, but Fernwood Tonight, it just does not get any funnier than that.
Yeah.
Fred Willard later became a friend, and a funnier person I don't know that can be. And
Yeah.
Martin Mull on that show. And I heard you say something on an interview where you were saying that he only did it to fund his art. Is that true?
I think he only did show business to fund his art. Yeah, I think show business was a way of giving him the time and the ease to be able to pursue his painting. Yeah, I think that's pretty much true. It may not have started out that way, but when he started getting serious about painting, I think that's what it
So what was
he's a wonderful painter. He's a really wonderful painter.
when
Do you know the work at all?
excuse me?
Do you know Martin's work at all?
I don't know his art at all.
Oh my God, he's really good. He's really, really good.
Well, if he did that to fund that, and I know how good he was at that, I can only imagine how great he is at that.
Yeah, he's an excellent painter, excellent artist.
Wow. So when I met Norman, you know, most people, when they meet Norman, they say, all in the family, all in the family. And I immediately went to Mary Hartman and Fernwood Tonight, because in those days, we didn't have DVRs, VCRs. We had to watch live. Never missed one episode. The most brilliant, Happy Kind in the orchestra. I mean, just everything about that show was just genius. How was it to work on?
It was great. Martin and I would teamed up for a lot of the time working on the opening sections that he did with Fred. And, you know, a daily show, you're not going to hit the ball out of the park all the time. And I would see scripts come in and think, well, good luck with that one. And then Freddie would take it and run with it and just do magic with it. And that was, I had already toured with Fred and become the Credibility Gap toured with the Ace Trucking Company.
Oh, wow.
Which was wonderful. That was killer fun. But Fernwood Tonight taught me Fred's ability to spin gold out of dross. And he did it just effortlessly. You never saw any effort in Freddie whatsoever. It just poured out of him, this amazing craziness. Every time I worked with him, it was just an extreme pleasure.
Oh, God, yeah. And such brilliant work you guys did. So, okay, so Saturday Night Live, how did that happen?
I guess I pissed somebody off.
No, I mean getting on it, not getting off.
That's what I mean. I mean, they really hated me. They got me on this. No, I was juggling two. First of all, Lauren had offered me a writing job in the show 2 years earlier, and I said I was just off of writing Fernwood Tonight, and I can write a funny TV show in LA. without having to move to New York. So he went, okay. So I was juggling 2 job offers. It sounds lunatic to me to say this, but it's actually true. I was being offered the job as the first host of Morning Edition on NPR, and job in the as a cast member on Saturday Night Live. So I went for a meeting in Washington first, and then I said, I think I'm taking the other job, but I'll let you know. And so I decided to do that, go to New York and do that. And the very first time I met Lorne, it was in the audience of the Winter Garden Theater, where Gilda Live, a Broadway show based on Gilda's sketches, so the sketches Gilda started, was playing. And it's an empty theater in the afternoon. And I walk in and sit on an audience seat, and Lorne is one row ahead of me. He says, you know, I've never hired a male Jew for the company before. I've always gone for the Chicago Catholic thing. And I realized I was in a very long year.
Wow. Did he really say that to you?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Wow.
And it was fair warning department.
So top 3 nightmares. I mean, so what was horrible?
Well, I try not to go into it too much in detail when I talk to people, because it's like I lived it once.
Was there anything wonderful about it? Did anything?
Yeah, it ended.
That bad, huh? Wow. But you came back again. You did a couple of years.
I am. This is an example. I thought of this when Bill Clinton got caught with the Monica Lewinsky thing. A whole category of smart people doing stupid things. And
glutton for punishment kind of thing?
Well, no, just thinking that it would be different. Lorne was gone. Dick Ebersol was there running the show. The band, Spinal Tap, had guests on the show when the movie came out.
Right.
And it seemed not quite as feral, not quite as devilish in its behavior. And so I thought, all right. The first time didn't go well, but this, one rarely gets a second chance at this stuff. This might be okay. And I was going with Chris and Marty Short. And so I thought, well, we'll see. And it was bad in a different, the thing I will give that credit show for is it can be bad in different ways. Mm. It can be unpleasant in a number of different ways. And so it was. And so I had a meeting with, after the show with Dick Ebersol. It was January 13th, 1985 at 1:43 in the morning. Why would that be? And, that's like freedom. And he said, wow. You're not happy here. I said, you're absolutely right. And I ticked off a couple of reasons. He said, well, maybe you'd like to leave. And I said, yep, maybe you'd like to pay me for the rest of the season. Which, I wish I could be that ballsy in negotiation all the time, because I could fire a lot of people. But I was so full of relief that I was going to be getting out that I thought, do it. And then
wow, I
got a phone call on the following Monday, from somebody at the Associated Press. Mm-hmm. And this is how every once in a while something good can come out of your mouth if you don't think about it first. And he said, I think it was a he. He said, we're hearing that you're leaving Saturday Night Live, and the reason they're giving is creative differences. Is that right? And I said, without a beat and without a thought, yeah, that's right. I was creative and they were different. What are you going to do?
That's pretty perfect, actually.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Harry,
I mean, it was no slam on Chris and Marty or anything, or Julia Louis-Dreyfus, or the other Mary Gross, and Pamela Stevenson. There was no slam on them, but it was just hard place to work.
Yeah, yeah, you're not the first person or the last to say that, I'm sure.
The number of people working on that show who have really great vicious impersonations of Lauren. It would be a great charity evening. The Laurens, an evening of Lauren Michaels.
So speaking of impersonations, when did you discover that you could do that? And do you remember what your first one was?
I remember doing these little fake radio shows on my father's tape recorder. I wrote some of my friends in, and we'd do stuff. And then I'd play with the machine by myself. Not Jeffrey Toobin style, but
but okay, so now you have such a resonant voice. When you were a little kid, did you have a little kid voice? I mean,
I had a little kid voice. So I was doing these voices, which I heard in my head. And I'm sure my parents were amused because they all came out sounding the same. And so years later, somebody made me think about this. I realized what I was doing was training my ear so that when the voice came in, it knew what it was supposed to be doing, because I had the ear already in my head for, oh, he sounds like that.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So what were some of the early impressions that you did?
Oh, I don't even remember. I mean, it was just people on the radio or people on TV, whatever, you know. I may have done people in the news too. I don't know, but it just people I saw or heard in the media. Not friends, not family or anything like that. It was just people that I was so obsessed with radio and TV, you know. So those were the voices in my head.
I'm really interested in your way in. I was married to an impressionist, and he
French impressionist or regular?
No, yeah, he was Letterman's head monologue writer for a while, and he's Vicki Abelson, a wonderful impressionist, and Homer and Marge was his bread and butter for a good long time, but he would try to talk to me about his way into a voice, and sometimes I know a lot of impressionists get a voice because they hear somebody else doing it. Like Kevin Pollak was saying that he got his Christopher Walken, was it him? I can't, or maybe somebody said they heard his, but sometimes people get it from hearing another impressionist doing a voice. What's your way into a voice?
Well, it's different. I tend to not work too hard at it, although I'm now having to work on Biden. But like,
you got it? Do you have it?
No, nowhere near. But I mean, the other guy, you know, from having heard him over the years, and it was easy to do him. It has been easy to do him. The nuances of the Queen's accent have been the thing that I think have thought most about, because people normally, when they think of a New York accent, they think of something like that. But he's got this Queen's accent that is like so totally weird.
Can you give us a little?
Well, Jad, he does a great job. Jad, who says Jad? He does. You know, he does a great job. Okay. But what you were talking about, I realized sometimes the people you're doing are doing people. Yeah. So, for example, there was a guy, you'll remember him. Some of the kids won't, but you'll remember him. Dick Clark, who had this 48-year career on television, a popular music show called American Bandstand, and then some other things too. And I did a thing when they lowered the voting age in 1988. ABC did a special. And I was hired to do a piece. I did Dick Clark's American Voting Awards, and because Dick made up all these award shows, and I played Dick Clark. And the day after the show aired, I got a letter from Dick Clark Productions, and it was signed by Dick Clark. And he said, "I saw you doing," and he puts his name in quotes, "Dick Clark on TV tonight, and I realized you were doing." The guy that I sort of modeled myself after coming up in the business. And I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, but you can give me a call. So I called him up and he said, "Did you understand that at all?" I said, "Yeah, Arthur Godfrey."
Wow.
He was then and now the person who had been on the air every week the most. He
Wow.
had 3 hours a day on network radio, 3 different hour-long shows on network TV every week. He was omnipresent. And he had this easygoing kind of voice that then Dick Clark just took that kind of rhythm. And the other guy was Tom Snyder, who had a late night talk show for many years. Danny Aykroyd did an impression of it. And I realized Tom Snyder, he would sit, when you could hold a cigarette on television, he would sit there holding his cigarette like this. And he was doing Edward R. Murrow.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
So if you can figure out who they're doing, that's a really good way in.
Wow, that's very cool, and it kind of plays with the other thing. I really like that. Okay, I'm looking at the time and I'm panicking because I have too much to talk to you about before you're doing. Tell us about the show you're doing today with your fantastic, amazing, talented, wonderful, beloved wife, Judith Owen.
Yeah.
Tell us about that for a sec.
Well, what we're doing in New Orleans, what people are doing is house music and porch music and music in the intersections. Musicians.
You're performing live outside, and there'll be audience there.
There'll be an audience. There's a trombone player in town named Rick Trolson who has a house whose front yard faces a park, and so people bring their lawn chairs, sit in the park. The great thing about it is we went to one a couple of weeks ago, and we're thrilled by it. The people who want to talk, who usually spoil it in a club, sit way in the back near the church. And the people who want to hear the music are in the front of the park, right across the street from the yard. And the city is. And I was telling somebody about it the other night, and they said, "Oh, we have a porch concert in our neighborhood." It's like that's what's keeping this place alive right now. So Judith and her wizard accompanist Pedro Segundo, and
we love Pedro.
Yeah, and I'm playing bass. I'm sitting in on bass. Because Lee Sklar isn't here. So.
Lovely. Okay, so that's a great segue. You playing bass. This is Spinal Tap. How the hell did this happen? How did this happen?
It was part of a sketch. Spinal Tap was part of a sketch for a TV pilot that Rob executive produced, Rob Reiner and I produced, and Chris and Tom Leopold.
Love Tom Leopold.
Yeah. So Tom and Chris were on the writing staff. And it was a clever idea for a show. Opening shot is you're behind a guy in a Barcalounger with a remote in his hand, and there's a TV in front of him, and he's pressing the remote, and the picture changes as he does. And now we go into the TV, and there's a series of sketches of parodies of TV stuff, and of course, sketches very often have great beginnings and very good middles and horrible endings. So this gave us the ability to get out of the ending. So it was a really good format, and it went through.
Saturday Night Live should try that on for size.
Who should?
Saturday Night Live.
It's the only network television show without major network competition in the history of American television.
Is that true?
With anything opposite it on CBS or ABC. Maybe that's why it survived. Anyway, because advertisers need to reach kids on Saturday night. There was a sketch that made fun of a show that was on NBC at that time called Midnight Special, where bands would appear. It was hosted by a guy called Wolfman Jack, a DJ.
Yeah.
So Rob played Wolfman Jack. We played this band. We made up this band called Spinal Tap. And we wrote a song called Rock and Roll Nightmare. And while we're taping it, sort of in the aftermath of it, we thought, maybe we should do something else with these characters. Cut to Rob gets a little first draft script deal with a company called Marble Arch. It was run by Sir Lou Grade, which everybody called him Sir Low Grade. And not everybody, sorry. And we tried writing a script for 2 or 3 days and thought, this is stupid. Nobody will be able to read this and understand it. Let's go take the money and make a 20-minute demo of it. And we made a 20-minute demo with a lot of the songs and a lot of the jokes, and shopped it around to studios. And everybody, when we showed it to them and the lights came up, they were like, What would that be? Thankfully, Norman Lear got to be head of Embassy Pictures for an hour and a half, and greenlit the movie while he was there.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
That's the only way it got done. And there were so many guillotine blades falling right behind us. 2 weeks before it's released, we're told by the guy who was Norman's partner but stayed when Norman left, if the first 2 critics who see this don't like it, this movie's not getting released.
Wow. I hope he lost his job. No.
Nobody lost their job. And the marketing director sits us down and says, guys, you think you have to, like, sometime in the first 30 seconds wink so people know you're kidding? And no, we don't. No, we don't think so. No, I mean, it was just one fucking thing after another. It's a miracle that movie got made and came out. Really.
Did you guys know when you were doing it, did you have any clue? You couldn't possibly have a clue what was going to happen with it.
Well, when we were talking to the studio guys, one or another of us would say, this is not a new story. Everyone who reads Rolling Stone knows this stuff. These stories have been shoved down young America's throat now for the last 15 years. It will have, because they would say rock and roll movies don't make any money. Trust us, this is known to people, this stuff. This is not a movie about life in outer space. But nobody knows really that whether something's going to have a life or not. You just do your best.
So Saturday Night Live, not so fun. I'm thinking this really fun.
The most fun in the world. The most fun in the world. Just endless fun. Well, I mean, I had never really, I didn't work in improv groups. The Credibility Gap wrote everything we did. So improv was I went and saw a lot of improv and knew a lot of improv actors and sort of heard what the thing was, what you got taught when you went to improv training. First thing you learn is it's not about talking, it's about listening, as opposed to ad-libbing, which is about talking. So it was, it was a tightrope act for me to be improving because I'd never done it before, but we didn't do it. We didn't decide, let's do an improv movie. We did it because that's the way it would look like a documentary.
Right.
The documentary is possible, and doing it improv style gave it that herky-jerky kind of rhythm that real stuff has, as opposed to you say your line now, I say my line now,
Right. Okay, so I mean, I could, and so how was it like touring as a rock band? Like
Great, fucking brilliant. Nothing wrong with it. Stand on stage, people, half the audience was like singing the lyrics along with us by that point.
Yeah.
And we're playing real loud and, making fools of ourselves. And then coming backstage to see the gals from the audience who were waiting for us, at which point I learned that they self-select based on the lyrics of your most popular song, and ours was Big Bottom.
You had your old brand of groupies, huh?
Yeah.
That's hysterical. All right, so a collaboration that goes on and on. I'm racing now. So A Mighty Wind.
Wonderful. Yeah. Again, huge fun. And again, Chris said the day before that performance, the performance is the centerpiece of the film. We're not pre-recording and we're not doing anything in post. What you do then is what is in the film.
Wow.
Chris, Michael, and I had the experience of performing that way together and not having help. It's down to us.
Right.
But other people in that show never had. And I was just, it was fun to be playing, but it was much more fun to watch these people. My God, how they rose to the fucking occasion with their instruments and with their singing. And I just was like amazed that this was what was happening because Chris put them on everybody under pressure. This is it. And they all wrote, all being show business pros, they rose to the occasion spectacularly. And it was just a wonderful thing. And then we had a little tour of everybody in that thing, and I would be still doing that. That was just ridiculous fun. Ridiculous fun.
Oh my. Okay, and then for your consideration,
that was the saddest of all of those pictures. It was most, deeply rooted in the actor's fantasy of this time maybe they'll like me. And it was the first time, only time so far that I've gotten to work with Catherine O'Hara. Done scenes with her, and I just thought I had to scrape myself off the floor. I was, just a little liquid pile being in the same scene with Catherine. She's just so amazing.
I just binged Schitt's Creek. I just can't even.
Well, they're all great, and I'm so glad that Chris Elliott has finally gotten a great part again. Chris is amazing. I won't waste your time with this, but after the show, I'll tell you one thing about Chris Elliott.
Oh no, come on!
All right, so the Letterman show. All right, the Letterman show. Chris Elliott does. William Shatner had done a version of Rocket Man in the late 70s. William Shatner style.
Yeah.
Overly, overacted, too many shots, too much stuff. And not singing, just with a cigarette. Rocket Man. And Chris Elliott, fucking Chris Elliott, does it shot for shot, pose for pose, on the Letterman show. Not 4 people in the world knew what he was doing because they didn't introduce it as William Shatner thing. He just came out and did it. It was just ballsiest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So we're here. We have to talk about The Simpsons now. I at last count, I think 21. How many characters on The Simpsons?
I don't know.
Some crazy thing.
Somebody counted and said 23, but I don't know.
Okay, so how did this happen for you? How did you move into that?
I'd met Matt Groening on a Hollywood street corner. No, this is okay. And there was a newsstand at Hollywood and Melrose and Martell. And we met at that newsstand. He had been writing this comic strip and also a record review column for the LA Reader, except he never reviewed records. It was a column about what he was doing instead of reviewing records that week. And he said to me, "I like your radio show." And I said, "I like your column." And 3 years later, I got a call. Matt's doing this cartoon show. I'd like you to do it. And I said, "I don't want to do a cartoon show." And they called a couple of times. And finally I thought, oh, okay. I mean, it was Fox. Nobody.
Right.
We needed a
20 what years ago? It's 20 something years ago, right?
32 years ago.
Oh, stop.
Sorry about that.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. So it was Fox, so it was like one of those things, a 6-week thing maybe, and suddenly it just takes off. And
when you started, what was your first voice? What was your first?
I have no idea.
No, what did you have? You had a lot of characters from the get-go?
Yeah, I think that's why Matt was a fan of my radio show where he heard me do a lot of characters. I think that was the point. They'd already cast the family.
So Mr. Burns was already on. Ned Flanders was already on.
What do you mean already on? No,
I mean they were characters from the get-go, I assume.
Yeah. And you just see a line in the script. This guy is this, and this guy is this. We didn't see drawings. I had no idea what they looked like. So and it was 8 months before the show went on the air. So we did the whole first season without really seeing what they looked like.
So how, Harry? How, Mr. Burns? How do you make a decision what he's going to sound like? You're not looking at him. You're not seeing anything. How are you making a decision?
The key is it's not a decision. It doesn't use the thinking part of your brain. It's just an intuitive leap. You just, because you'll go crazy trying to, to think about it is like, there's nothing to think about. It's like, there's no data to analyze, so you might as well just go for it. And if they don't like it, you try something else. really,
were any of them challenging for you, or would they just come?
They just came. Dr. Marvin Rowe was challenging to do because he was written as a guy with a totally irritating manner. He was a family therapist with a totally irritating manner, and I did him with a very. Dr. Marvin Rowe sounded like this. And at the time, I really didn't know how to make that not hurt. So I was kind of glad when they killed him off.
So can you give us a little Ned Flanders?
You know, somebody recently told this story. I didn't have no memory of it, but he said he was at, I think, on the writing staff. He said I was at the read through with the first Flanders, when Flanders first appeared. Mm-hmm. He said it was written as Homer says something and Flanders says in the script, okie dokie. And he says, and I remember you, when it came to your turn, you said, oakley dokley, neighbor.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I love that you're so in touch with your instincts, which is clearly what has driven so much of your brilliance. And I am so honored and thrilled to have spent this time with you. It's been a long time coming. I'm just an enormous fan, and you're just as lovely as you are funny, which is so nice. And you've written 3 books, and you're a journalist. I mean, there's like so much to you that we haven't even touched on. So hopefully you'll come back sometime and we can talk more when you're not going off to do it.
I'm not plugging this.
Wait. Okay. So let's do that again. The many moods of
Donald Trump. Yeah, that's the first.
You have to laugh when you say it.
That's the many moods of Donald Trump. The first joke is, of course, there's only one mood. Fuck me, fuck you. That's his mood.
So we'll be looking for it on October 30th. That we can get the CD, we can stream it. Today, the concert, they can find it how?
I think
on Judith's Facebook page, maybe.
Facebook page, probably, yeah.
Okay, I'll post this. Harry, thank you so much. I adore you. I adore your beautiful wife, your wonderful wife, and thank you.
Oh, and I'm still doing my radio show on public radio station.
Oh, and the show, yeah. Okay, so where can we find that in LA?
Online on harryshearer.com.
Okay, on harryshearer.com we can find, I'm guessing, pretty much everything of yours.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give them a link for that so they can go to it.
Okay.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a fun concert. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.